Cheers, cheers.
Maybe the first of many.
And this one is
Yeah.
Cheers Queers.
You're speeding up already? We're going there. I mean, like, already? Well, it was a really good first step toward changing the conversation. With 120 people at a time. I mean, that was really pretty amazing.
It really was. The responses were incredible. So I don't know how it was when you were meeting with your guests during the reception, but were people, I mean,
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. It was, a lot of people came over and said that they had not talked about this before or felt lonely. There was one woman there, oh, bless her. Her mom died 8 months ago and today's her birthday.
I know.
It was her first
I met her.
birthday without
Yeah.
her mom.
Yeah.
And she was just wondering how to get in the birthday spirit if she didn't feel like celebrating. And the
Yeah.
answer was, you don't have to feel like celebrating. This is your year of firsts. It's going to be a really
Yeah.
hard year.
Yeah.
Next year will be easier, and the year after that will probably be a little easier than that. But
But do you know what she said to me? She told me that she's a computer programmer and that she's been trying to like naturally figure out an algorithm for her grief. And I said,
Yeah.
well, you heard hope today.
What?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I said, you heard hope today. There is no algorithm. It's like, it's an abstract painting. You're never going to figure out a perfect formula for it.
And I loved how you said that, hope that these events come up and trigger it again. And that's so important to talk about. Just when you think you look okay, you're doing okay, and then you have these events.
Okay, so what was everybody's last trigger?
Last what?
Last trigger. What was your last trigger?
My son's
That-
high school graduation. Last trigger. That was a huge trigger for me.
How come?
Because I didn't get to say this today. I wish I did, but for me, tragedy had blurred the lines between loss and leave. So I couldn't differentiate that he had left to go to college. I thought I had lost him, and so when he wasn't in his bedroom, in my mind, he had died. And it wasn't until he came back at Thanksgiving that I said, okay, he's back. This is going to be okay.
First, I'd have to say my last trigger was my uncle passed away earlier this year. And at his funeral, all I remember thinking was my mom would be so sad that her baby brother has died.
Yeah, it's her brother.
It was her brother.
Yeah.
And that just kind of kicked things into overdrive for me.
Oh yeah. No, this is a thought, and I have thought about it actually quite a bit. Is a disadvantage an advantage? So taking early loss, and there was one piece of literature on even percentage of U.S. presidents who had experienced the death of a parent before age 18, I think it was.
Yeah.
And so could we perceive that as an advantage, just having that adversity or trauma in childhood? Does that propel a child? And I don't know if it gives them drive or motivation or strength to do great things. And
Look
I think
at every single Disney film. Every single Disney film.
so
has
why is she
the
motherless?
hero who loses a parent? Like
Why is she motherless?
Cinderella, Snow White, like all of them, even Lion King,
Lilo and
Bambi.
Stitch.
You
Yeah.
just keep naming them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frozen, like
Yeah.
all of them, even the recent ones, they lose a parent or two
Yeah.
parents, and they have to go on a quest to find themselves and to grow strong.
But
in
why?
order to move through their lives.
Don't you think it gives you a new definition of bad? So after that, nothing
Yeah.
else matters. You just work hard and
Right.
and assuming everybody's healthy, everything else will fall into place because
Yeah.
your definition of bad is different than other people's.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see, I've written about the possible connection between early parent loss and later achievement because it's out there. There are books on that. And I think that among certain people with a certain type of temperament or innate talent, it can be a motivating force. You know, it can turn up the volume on that talent or that achievement drive or that drive for achievement. But I don't think that those studies account for the fact that in a lot of households, the death of a parent is only one of several adverse events. And those studies seem to treat this loss like it occurs in a vacuum, like you can just extract somebody from the family equation and everything else remains status quo. And so it's not such a pure relationship because in a lot of families, a mom will die and there will have been prior domestic abuse or mental illness or the adverse childhood experiences, the ACEs start piling up. And then it becomes increasingly difficult to see mother loss or early parent loss as an advantage. So, I think it goes both ways and we
Yeah,
have
I
to
appreciate
acknowledge
that.
that there's another side to it
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
I think the Disney movie question too, like it goes back to what you say about the hero's journey and how that's kind of a pretend way to talk about grief. Because anyone who's been through it knows that it's not the 5 stages, it's not that simple. But it is super tempting to want to characterize grief like that because it makes it feel less terrible, and like it, I think especially for people who haven't experienced it but know that they will someday, it's nice to wrap it up in a little story about a princess, because it makes you feel like, okay, if they can handle it on screen, then I can handle it.
Yeah.
Can I just say how amazing it is to all of us be sitting at this table together? Nobody in my life really gets it.
Yeah.
I know every single one of you at this table get it.
It's true. It's amazing.
We share the same unspoken language. We just understand each other on a very visceral level.
And I think that's what your book did. Because at the time, I had no one in my life who was dealing with that. And when I opened the book and I was reading stories of women in different stages of their lives who they were speaking to me. And it was just such an amazing feeling to know that, you know what, this 17-year-old girl who is feeling this pain, this loss, this grief, this isn't the end-all be-all for her because the women in this book are telling me that it's not.
Yeah.
They're not. And a lot of those women were in their 20s and 30s when I wrote the book, and I'm catching up with them now 25 years later and re-interviewing them, and it's pretty amazing. There's Gail. She's one of the original 92 women in the book.
And
25 years.
so from my perspective is I get the Village Voice, the hard copy. This is in 1992. Reading the Village Voice, I look at the back of the Village Voice, there's an ad, it says author, something like author looking for women who lost their mothers during childhood and adolescence. I thought, what is this crazy person up to?
What was that crazy person up to?
I
should have stopped her back then.
It's half my life ago. I walk up my 5th floor, walk up, I go into my apartment, I sit on my futon bed, this is how long ago it is, and I dial on my landline this number, and I talk to this one.
To my landline.
To her landline, and this is 19, and I just showed her the other night the letter that she wrote me after that first conversation. It was dated August 23rd, 1992. So great. And then soon after, soon after, I was part of a focus group. That was the first time I sat in a forum, just as we are tonight, with different losses, different ages. I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
Treated it like that's the only bad thing that will ever happen to you. So let's do it. So this is to the end of the conversation, or just this conversation and the beginning of a new one. Let's change the conversation about grief. Let's start.
Let's do it. Thank you. Cheers.
Why am I the only person with a
We're doing it.
glass of wine?